Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
It's all about moreness. Yes, everything in life you can have, you can dream, you could do it. And sometimes you need that guidance. That's why
Yes.
Sebastian is here from Nobelia.org, sharing the love, sharing the message of moreness. So welcome back today. How are you?
Most excellent. Most excellent. Happy to be here.
Great.
Moreness, just to clarify, moreness isn't about extra wealth, extra fame, extra status, extra importance. It's more than that, right? Because those tend to be a bit hollow. You get all those, and then what? Moreness is when you have all that, and you say, and then what? Or you say, well, do I need to get that? Because I'm going to spend all this energy getting it, and then it's still not going to be enough. Moreness is what really satisfies the spirit and the heart. Yeah. So that's what moreness is, right? That ineffableness, that's more than what we think we need,
Yeah.
but what we actually need, right? We're chasing paper dragons, in other words. Last week we spoke about attunement. This week I want to speak about self-conception. The critical importance of self-conception, not self-description, but self-conception. I'll go into the difference in a moment. I just want to finish off from last week. Last week we spoke about attunement. Attunement is in the moreness project, moreness culture. Attunement is the culmination of way of impeccability, which is the core foundational mindset, philosophy, attitude, etc. that goes into way of impeccability. You can figure it out just from the name itself, right? And attunement is the end point of that. So I explained what attunement is, but we ran out of time because it's a big topic. I just wanted to add one more thing that will bring it all nicely into focus. Attunement is living according to decisions which come from outside the self. Does that make sense, Jill? I mean, most of our lives, we just take it for granted. You know, I decide, I think what's going on, even if you're following, somebody else's, your parents or authority or whatever. But as you get to be an adult, yes, you may still be following somebody, but you decide whether or not you follow them or not, right? So it's still your decision in the end, yeah? But when you're living at attunement, you say, my decisions are compromised. I know that. No matter how sensible I may be, my decisions ultimately, in the big picture, my decisions are potentially flawed. They may be right, but potentially flawed. So I can't trust them.
Yeah.
So that's what the goal of self-wisdom, in that young man's story. Right? That's what the young man says. The goal of self-wisdom is flawed. And it's not attainable, really. So now he says, well, I got to do something else. And he shifts from taking, and that's his attunement, right? Living according to decisions that come from outside of you. Right? Very important point. Very, very important point. And by the way, this is not easy to do. It takes quite a bit of courage to do initially, because we have trust in our decisions, whether we think they're going to be correct or not. It doesn't matter. There's a security in me deciding. When you taking a decision from outside yourself, you have no idea where it's going. You have to rely entirely, purely on trust, capital T trust. Now, that capital T trust has to be founded on impeccability. A very important point. Trust without impeccability, you just have hope and indulgence, really, but it's an empty kind of a hope that, things will work out. Yeah, and you're basically saying that you don't have to make any effort, yeah, and you're just sort of trusting that things will work out. No, you need to do everything that you can do, which is what impeccability is, and that's what capital D trust is based on. That, right? Got to make the right effort. So it's a profound way of living, of course, living via attunement, but also it takes some courage to do. Yes, I mean it's not simple to do. Yeah, but that's where impeccability comes into it. And now let's tie all of this to self-conception. Yeah, if you say, most people say, all right, Joel, what are you? So Joel says, well, I'm a broadcaster and I'm a mother. Okay, that may be things that you say, but those are boxes, are they not? A mother behaves in a certain way. Well, for the most part, maybe not for you. Yeah. All right. Well, say how you don't think it's a box.
No, no. I mean, I don't like when people define themselves by what they do. And someone says, "Who are you?" And it's like,
Precisely.
"Oh, I'm a broadcast."
Precisely.
I just say
Precisely.
I'm just me, and I love my kids, and I just.
Exactly.
But yeah, I
Exactly.
don't. You're right. A lot of people
Exactly.
box us into
Exactly.
that. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. You absolutely make my point for me. To say who I am by what I do, this is ridiculous. Because you can have an evil broadcaster, you can have a good broadcaster, you can have a joyful broadcaster, you can have whatever. There's a zillion ways to be a broadcaster. Same thing with being a mother, right? There's a many ways to be a mother. Just because you're a mother doesn't mean you're necessarily a good mother, yes? Or a diligent mother, or actually you might not even be a mother that wants to be a mother. You may be a reluctant mother. It tells you nothing, right? And even worse, this is when this is how people conceive of themselves, it becomes very, very limiting, because now the self, right? They have an idea of a broadcaster. A broadcaster's maybe professional, a broadcaster's high energy, whatever. And they take those cliched ideas of their profession and they put it into their self. But but because it's so vague and nebulous, there isn't really a depth to the self, right? And a description, even worse, a description is defined, it's predefined, and therefore it's static. If you start describing yourself according to your profession, doctor, nurse, whatever, broadcast, etc., that stays that way. It doesn't evolve. It doesn't grow. What happens to you as a person? You don't evolve or grow either.
You're just stuck in a
Yeah,
box.
stuck in a box. Exactly, exactly. Now we come to exactly, and this is horrible. It's
I
horrible.
feel
It's
like,
it's
yeah.
really, really limiting, and actually, it's really fascinating when you look at people who basically get their lives together and you look at how they fill that box of whatever it is they're doing, you'll see that they bring moreness to whatever
Mm-hmm.
their profession is, right? As we see with Jill, right? Yes, you can say Jill is a broadcaster, but is Jill a typical broadcaster?
I
I
don't
would
know.
not say so. I would not
Thank you.
say so. However, as Jill got herself, when you say, is Jill broadcaster? I have to say, what makes Jill a good broadcaster is the fact that Jill is not a stereotypical broadcaster. She's more,
Mm-hmm. Thank
right?
you. Thank you. Yes, yes, I am more.
Exactly.
Darn
You
right.
more than just a broadcaster. You more than
Mm-hmm.
also a mother. You more
Yeah.
than a mother and a broadcaster put
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So now we say, well, what is Jill then? And then here's the issue with self-conception. We tend in our culture to want to have a specific thing to latch onto, to say, oh, Jill is a this, Jill is a that, right? It's just our makeup, and it's just our habit. Why? Because that's part of when we know where somebody is, then we can deal with them. And part of hierarchy and superiority paradigm, we can say, well, where
Mm-hmm.
are they in the hierarchy, and how do I relate to
Yeah.
being higher or lower than them, blah, 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 right? So, and how can I manipulate them or whatever, right? So this is typically the underlying reason for wanting to know specifically and exactly where somebody is, because that allows you to deal with them and be higher or lower or as appropriate, right? I mean, if you
Mm-hmm.
can't be higher, then you have to know how to suck up to them. Yeah, right. And that's the hierarchy logic, yes?
Yeah.
Anyway, so now we say, but the downside of that is that it doesn't really allow for any evolution, any growth, and it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
allow for much change either. But if we have a self conception, which is one that is open ended, it enables us to be more on demand. Now, what do I mean by open ended self conception? Well, let's just say I'm a learning explorer. That's my self conception. That's what I do. I explore and I learn. That's it. Or I'm a spirit warrior. That's the one I use in the program, just as a default. Doesn't mean everybody must choose this in way of impeccability. I
Yeah.
use it as an example. What I mean by spirit warrior, rather than spiritual warrior, I actually point out the difference there. I have no idea what spiritual means in general. I see people
Mm-hmm.
throw it about all over the show, and boy, you can try and pick, it's like pin the donkey's tail there, but you actually playing with an elephant. You have no clue where this goes, right? It can mean just about anything. But spirit, we have an idea with spirit. I've got spirit, they've got spirit, or spirit in general, which is an ineffable energy that affects our lives. Okay, so I'm a warrior for spirit, my own spirit, spirit in general. What do I mean by a warrior? Somebody who makes an effort, somebody who's disciplined, somebody who's courageous, somebody who's willing to go and do whatever is necessary in order to fulfill the task. Plus, warrior has an underlying understanding, usually with the word of some sort of integrity or honor involved with it. And integrity and honor, those are very closely connected to impeccability. They're not exactly the same thing, but very close, especially integrity, right? If you're acting impeccably, then you're going to have integrity, right? But not necessarily the reverse, right? So when we look at all of this and we put it all together, we see, warrior is part of way of impeccability. Well, the warrior part is the application and implementation of impeccability. Now, I won't speak about what impeccability is itself. That's a big topic, and we'll go through it. Actually, we can do that next week. We can really go into detail as to what exactly impeccability is. I don't know if I've done that before or not, but it's good for a refresher. So now we say, okay, I'm a spirit warrior. In other words, I'm not just taking my impeccability and focusing it on my day-to-day living. I'm also looking to connect it to that ineffable moreness that is spirit. However I wish to define spirit, it doesn't matter. But I'm looking beyond just the mundanities of life, and I'm saying, well, spirit, this is something that's got to do with the moreness of life itself, right? In other words, I don't just live and eat and sleep and do whatever and then I die. Spirit has got to involve more than just death, correct? Anything that's beyond it, well, this is. So I don't know exactly what it's involved, but this is, as a warrior, I'm going to make that effort to find out. And anything that I need to deal with, I will deal with. The warrior part implies that you are going to make appropriate effort. Yes. Now, again, a true warriors, a real ideal warrior will never use violence, will never fight. By the way, just to clarify, yes, because the mandate of the warrior is peace, not violence.
Wait, you said the mandate of peace. Say it one more time.
The mandate
The
of a
mandate
warrior,
of a warrior.
yeah,
Okay,
is
is
peace.
peace, not got it.
Yeah, I mean, we think of them as warriors associated with violence, but this is incorrect, right? That's the last resort. True warriors, if they're really skilled at being a warrior, forget the spirit part now. If they're truly skilled, they will use strategy, negotiation, all sorts of things to actually never fight. I mean, if you read Sun Tzu, The Art of War, the classic strategy treatise, right? Art of War. Uh, he recommends, he says very clearly that if you really know your stuff, you'll actually never fight, right? You'll find other ways to solve the problem, right? This is the ultimate. Right? So violence is an absolute last resort. However, what makes the warrior different is that they're willing to do this ugliness, this horribleness of violence when they have no choice whatsoever, right? But it's a last resort. Here's the thing, though. With violence, we have to be aware that it's a last resort. That's why you need integrity and impeccability. Because otherwise, violence can make you lazy.
I feel like violence can do a lot wrong to your body and to,
Exactly.
we need more
Exactly.
positive thoughts, positive behavior, happy
Exactly.
behavior to keep us
Exactly. Exactly.
more and whole.
Exactly. Violence is exceedingly costly and expensive.
Draining.
Exactly. But I mean, it's also expensive on your soul, on your spirit, because violence, you can't take it back that easily, especially ultimate violence, right? There's no coming back from it. If you kill somebody in battle, no matter how much you think is justified, uh, there's no coming back from it. All right, well, let's think of it this way. Let's say somebody you really love gets a brain tumor and they start acting violent and crazy. Yeah. Well, you call the cops and what do? They shoot them. Yeah, I mean, this has happened many times. Well, we don't know if the person had a brain tumor, but somebody. But let's just say, for
Yeah.
argument's sake, uh, I mean, how many times haven't you seen somebody waving a knife in the car and they end up shooting the poor guy? Like,
Mm,
come on, seriously? Now let's say that person was worth something, right? Actually valuable, money wise,
yeah.
like wild animals. Yes, exotic game. They don't just they find ways to capture the exotic game, whether the exotic game wants to. A lion doesn't
Yeah.
matter, whatever, right? They find ways to capture them without killing them. Well, why can't we do that with people? So my point is that that violence, in that sense, there's no coming back from it. It's a poor resolution.
Mm,
And when you understand this, plus to your own spirit and
then,
soul, it's very costly. But somebody who's willing to do that when there's truly, absolutely no other option. However, true
yeah.
warriors will always find another option and never use that because there are other options, right? There are. No, you don't need to do this.
Agree.
Now, when we look at this and we understand that a warrior is somebody who makes every effort to do what needs to get done, and of course to do so in the best possible way, right? Because the mandate
Hmm.
is peace. Yeah. Now we've got a whole different scenario for warrior. Yeah, and a warrior is somebody who understands the seriousness of what's
Oh,
involved. Yeah,
yeah.
that's another thing. Yes, I may be have
How do you
superior
get?
techniques and
Mm-hmm.
strategies. I'm capturing that lion. I still know if I make a mistake, the lion's going
It's
to
gonna bite
maul
you.
me or eat me or whatever.
Yes.
Right. So this is important that you realize the stakes and that you act accordingly. Yes.
Yep.
And when we most people go about their lives and they just kind of oblivious to death, right? And as a result, they die sometimes just from foolishness all the time. Right? I mean, look at car
Hmm.
accidents. Yeah. They really don't have death with them as a constant companion. Living as a warrior, death is your ally because
Yeah.
death keeps you sharp, death keeps you alert, death keeps you aware, and death tells you, hey, stop wasting your time on your idiotic things that you think that are
Are
important.
important that really aren't, and it's just BS. Yep.
Exactly. So, as a warrior, especially as a spirit warrior, you are saying, man, my focus is on spirit, on moreness, on going further. Now, that's the point I'm talking about spirit warrior is because it's a self conception. A self conception. You can have any self conception you like. A power learner.
Mm-hmm.
Sabina
Power
thinks
learner.
of herself as a power
She
learner.
is,
Yes.
right? She's sharp. She's spunky. We miss you, by the way. We'll see you hopefully soon.
Yes, yes, we do miss you, Bina. We do miss you. Yes, uh, yeah. It's unfortunate she couldn't be here today, but yeah, she'll be back. She'll be back. Yeah, she likes being here too. She enjoys you, Jill, very much. So it's
Thank
it's
you.
great to be here.
Same here.
Um, so and a knowledge explorer, adventurer, life adventurer, right? Rather than just adventurer. See, there's that life adventurer says, I'm adventuring in life. That doesn't mean that I
Doesn't
go all over
mean.
the world. I
Mm-hmm.
might not armchair. See, life adventure puts that moreness connectivity to it, right? The point of these conceptions is because it's a conception rather than a definition. Conceptions, just to understand what they are inherently, conceptions are somewhat open-ended, right? And they evolve and they grow. Plus, conceptions are connected. Whereas definitions are in their own little box and bubble. That's it. They define, they static, and that's it. And they closed. Whereas a conception is open, it's connected, right?
Yeah.
And look at my background. See, nice sort of a nice conception of conception, right? It
Mm-hmm.
has this ripple effect. But when you really start looking at conceptions, they connect to other things always, right?
Yeah.
There's always a moreness. You can't just take it in isolation. Now, the example that I give is for the importance of a self-conception. If you're going into your business meeting as Jill the broadcaster, right? Okay, you're going to the business meeting. There's a range of behavior that is appropriate for Jill the broadcaster, right?
True. Very true.
However, go into that meeting as Jill the power learner, Jill the spirit warrior. Suddenly your range of options of how you can behave has completely expanded and exploded, right?
Yeah, it has.
As a spirit warrior, as a knowledge, life explorer, life adventurer, whatever,
Uh-huh.
got a lot more freedom to do a lot more. You can pretty much do whatever you like as
Yeah.
appropriate. And that's really, really powerful. Because a lot of people will go into a meeting and they want to speak up, but
You're like,
their self-definition, that image
mm-hmm.
that they have, it inhibits them.
They
Yes,
don't
they
have,
can't.
yeah.
It's not
Mm-hmm.
appropriate for them to do so as who they
They
are.
are at that moment.
Right. And that's so limiting, obviously. That's defining. And that's what defining to me is a synonym for limiting. Same thing. Right? Define, limit, same thing. Yeah. So we want to have this openness, this freedom. And if you go around and you walk inside yourself with this feeling, this idea that I'm whatever your self-conception is, and make sure your self-conception is open-ended. Yeah.
True.
Like spirit warrior, life explorer, life adventure, whatever. Right? That enables you to grow, to shift, to be, and whatever's
Be
appropriate, you do.
different and
Something
yep.
happens, especially if you're now living via attunement. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
oh,
Uh-oh.
oh. I got to act according to this. And you do, because that's what your self-conception says. And the key point I want to make to wrap up here, since we're running out of time, right? I want to just wrap
5
up
minutes.
before
We're
we
good. You're
completely
good. All right.
run out.
Yes. You never do that. Go ahead.
The key point of having a self-conception is that it enables you to shift, adapt, evolve as appropriate as you go along in life. And
Okay.
plus, because your self-conception is connecting you to a moreness, not just to the typical things that we've been told we should follow. Fame and status and wealth and importance and all the stuff from superiority
Mm-hmm.
paradigm. Now you're shifting into a moreness living,
Okay.
whether you, however you define it for yourself,
Or
but
not.
that
Yeah.
that opens up the possibilities of being, and you
Okay.
are not limited, right?
You
And
don't
that's
want to
the
be
key point.
limited.
And you may not know where it's going, but does it matter? You know where it's not going, which is the dead end of the self-description.
Yeah. Very true.
You don't need to know where you're going, but as long as you know it's not a dead end and it is going somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And that's really key. Plus, the self-conception affects everything about who we are. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, well, uh, I'm a low energy person. Well, keep saying that, and what's going to happen? You're going to be a low energy person, right? So self-conception is intimately connected to the power of language.
Of beautiful.
Critically, it is the nexus point of everything that flows. So all of our
Yeah.
self-talk, and you can look up self-talk and the power and importance of self-talk. It's all over the internet, right? It's all.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be exquisitely careful with our self-talk. We need to be very disciplined. Never say this nonsense stuff that people say, "Oh, I'm so stupid." Never say that stuff.
Yeah.
I, you
Well,
can, you say, "Yeah, but I was stupid in that moment." Fine. Then say, "Oh my goodness, I was so stupid back then. I was so stupid. What I did was so stupid." That's fine. To say I did something stupid is very different to saying I am stupid.
yep. I did, and you learn from it.
Exactly. That's being honest. But see, that's what I'm saying. We need to be excruciatingly, exquisitely precise in our language.
Absolutely.
I am stupid is ongoing into the future. To say I did something stupid or I was stupid, that says in the past. Right?
Yeah.
Same thing like where people talk about, let's say, "Oh, I'm so impatient."
Huh.
Al, you're going to be impatient now. You are creating this reality now. Why is this so important to self-conception? Because it's tied to the language, right? When you
Mm-hmm.
say I am so important, you're conceiving yourself as impatient. And because we are honest generally inside ourselves, deep down, no matter how much lies you may tell in life in general, at some root point of view, you want to be honest and true, right? It's just part of our DNA to be that way. What happens? You actually try and make what you say true so that you're not a liar and a phony.
I don't like liars and phonies. And I feel
Exactly.
like I could
Exactly.
spot you from where you're coming. Don't be that way.
Exactly,
You're
exactly.
better than
So
that.
now, right, so now when we realize this, we say, "Oh, when I say I'm so impatient, I'm going to try and make myself impatient so that I'm not a liar and a phony."
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. By the way, on impatience, yeah,
Yeah.
most people don't want to be liars and phonies, but they don't want to be arrogant either, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, so now if you think of impatience, if you're impatient, doesn't that mean you want the world to work according to your timetable?
Only. Yeah. Yeah. It's
And
not
doesn't
good.
that make you profoundly arrogant?
Upset. Totally. It makes me upset to know people like that. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Right. So if you're impatient, you're expecting the world to work according to your timetable, which makes you ridiculously arrogant.
Mm.
So that means you can't be impatient anymore, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. My kids are, but they're young. They're
Right.
learning.
Well, explain this to your kids
I
to say,
will.
wow, isn't that the most arrogant thing ever to be impatient? And
Yeah.
then they realize that and they don't want to be arrogant, so they stop being impatient.
It's so
It's
true.
a way to leverage the self via
Yep.
self-conception. See how the power of self-conception. We don't want to conceive of ourselves as arrogant.
Mm.
But when we understand arrogance is associated with impatience, well, now I can't be impatient anymore because I don't want to be arrogant. So our self-conception can affect everything. We just need to make the connections. Right? That self-conception is the core of the self-talk, of how we perceive ourselves. Because that's why it's a self-conception. And now, perception is what is. Conception is what we create. So a self-conception, why I use this term, it's a power term, self-conceptions in my dictionary of power, right? Capital S, capital C, hyphenated. Very important, because in my self-conception, I am conceiving of myself constantly. Now, when you conceived your children, right, it was something new that you brought into the world, correct?
It's beautiful, of course. Oh gosh.
Right, right. So now when you conceive of yourself, you are
Ah.
bringing a new self constantly into the world, one that's evolving and growing.
Yep. And I apologize. We are out of time now. We always do it. We can't ever wrap early, but that's okay. Still Sabastian, Nobelia.org. How did you want to leave off?
That's it. That's
Perfect.
it. Nobelia.org.
Beautiful.
You'll find
Thank
me
you
there.
so much. You have a great day. Always a pleasure, darling. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk
too, Jill.
soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.